This video is to give you an introduction what is Fujisan and what it can offer for the Atari 8-bit enthusiasts. Fujisan came from an idea that I had to create a truly modern UI for the Atari 800 emulator. A lot of people love that emulator, but some feel a little bit thrown off when they have to interact with the in-emulator screens. There are options that you have to manipulate the emulator. So I came with the idea to take the Atari 800 source code and put on top a Qt modern UI library. And that is how Fujisan was born. If you want to take a look at what Fujisan can offer to you, best place to go is to Fujisan GitHub page at this address, github.com PEG Garcia Fujisan. Here you have the source code, but also you can see here on the right side the release. This is the place where you can download the version you want to use. Usually every time I release a new version, I put new features, bug fixes, and any other information that it's needed for the users to know what's new. And here you have all the assets or files that you need to download Fujisan. Currently, I create versions for Apple macOS with Apple Silicon, the macOS with Intel processor x86, and also I have Linux ARM and Linux Intel x86 files, and as well as Windows. So all three platforms are covered here. You select the one you want, you download, and you install according to the instructions of or procedures of any OS. For example, the DMG is the DMG are images for the macOS. TarGZ is just like a compressed archive that you unpack on your Linux. You have the Debian versions that it's like use the Debian install, like or all Linux that are derived from Debian, like Ubuntu. And Windows, you have a zip file. We don't have installer for Windows. You just unzip it and run Fujisan directly from there. After you do this, here I am on macOS, and I'll try to go back and forth in with like the different OSs so you can have a good idea on how that works. So let's run Fujisan here, which is already installed. As soon as you open Fujisan, you can see that there are a very simple but modern interface. At the top, you have the most common features that you might use on an emulator, like the Atari buttons here. You have an option to save and load profiles, so you can have multiple profiles with different settings, depends on what you're doing. Volume control, joystick, you can enable actual joysticks or use the keyboard joystick emulator. Here you can select the different types of machines you can have, which is all what Atari 800 supports. Select if you want BASIC or not enabled, NTSC or PAL, and also the emulation speed. Here is the cartridge, and here is the drives, which is currently disabled. The most simple thing you can do with Fujisan is simply turn on the drive. You can insert an image. Let's see if I have something here that we can use. I do have here. Let's use this folder, and here I have some ATR files that we can see how that works. Let's put the disk operating system, which is already loaded, and then you press code boot, DOS, and then you have it loaded. If you want to use more drives, you can always press this button here, which will open a different view with all the drives. You can add more, up to 8. You have the cassette record here. There is a little bit of space here because depends on the options you have. You might have other icons and widgets here to use. Okay. Um, the other thing that Fujisan is different than the other emulators is that I try to create an emulator where it's useful for my own use. So for people that are used to Altira, Atari 800 Mac X, or even Atari 800, you might feel that Fujisan has less options, and that's on purpose. I don't want to add options that I usually don't use, and I hope like most of the users don't use as well. Although this is true, I have been adding some features that I get from feedback from early users, things that for me wouldn't be necessary, but for them would be very useful. So I've been adding as we go. So that's not set in stone that will not have a certain option. And if you go here to the settings, you have some like, let's talk about some basic operation first. Like I said, you can select the model, you can select your ROM files and also the basic ROM file. By default, it uses Altira. You might find weird that was loading Altira, but that's not set. That's because if you don't have the ROM files here, it will default to Altira anyways. So we have the option, let's say, to load the Atari ROMs. I think I have here somewhere. Tar 8-bit, and then I go to tar XL, and same for the basic. Um, let's load this one here. So now Atari has this one. I can save the profile to make sure this is always saved, although normally the main options, if you don't save here, as soon as you press OK, it will save in the default profile. And then, because you changed machine configuration, now you have the Atari ROM loading. If you turn off BASIC, you'll see the regular Atari OS boot for the self-test operations. Now, what Fujisan is really different than the other emulators is that I try to make it very easy for people to use an emulator and try to use Fujinet, which is the device that give the Atari, even like the physical Ataris, the capability to access network drives and emulates also probably all the peripherals that Atari has, like cassette, modem, printer, and so on. To do that, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to install anything else. You just go to the settings, and then here you can enable NetSIO, and then as soon as you do that, Fujinet is already enabled. So when I click OK, in this case is loading the config application for Fujinet that you can navigate, mount drivers, and so on. One thing that it's important regarding the Fujinet is about the SD card, which it maps to a folder in your local machine, either Windows, Mac, or Linux. By default, this SD card is pointing to where the binary for Fujisan is installed, and that's not convenient because every time you update Fujisan, you could be losing all your files. So you can come here in the settings, the Fujinet tab, and you can set the a proper SD card folder, which is something or somewhere that you know that you have your files, and Fujisan won't touch this next time you install. So let's see here. This is my SD card, but then if you go on the, let's say, this server, Atari, and then you have multiple applications here. Let's go to Fujinet, and let's say you want to copy something to the local machine. You just press C, click SD card, C again. That file will be copied and it will be available on your on your machine. If you go now to SD card, you have the files there. So let's say you want to copy Megamaze and test it. You can drag it into the emulator screen, drop in there, it will be mounted, and you just need to press Option to boot from that file. You see that the drive simulates as if it's a physical driver here, but it's actually working with Fujinet. Same thing here with the network activity. Let's Okay, this is a little bit noise, so let's say if you do a code boot again, we'll try to load this file. So you have to reset Fujinet, and then if you press the code boot, you backloading the config application. One thing that Fujisan also brings with like a tight integration with Fujinet is the printer here. So I will enable the printer. There was something there before. So let's say I come here, I will load the DOS, and there I have basic. Let's say I type a program, print, test, 20, print. Then I want to print this. So to print, I can do list, drive P, and as soon as I press this, this will go to Fujinet, and then you have a new paper here showing up, emulating the Atari 825. So if you click here, it will load exactly what the list as a PDF. It depends on the type of print. Sometimes it's a PDF, sometimes it's an image file, I believe an JPEG. But anyway, this is how this is integrated. Another thing that you have with Fujisan is bundled Fastbasic compiler. One of the things that it's more interesting to me is to use Fastbasic to develop Atari programs, and Fujisan was born to help on that task as well. As you probably know, you have to download Fastbasic manually. You have options to use Fastbasic with Visual Studio Code, but sometimes you want to use any text editor you have at hand to create some small programs. So what Fujisan offers here is the ability to use a bundled Fastbasic compiler. So let's do something quickly here. I'm going to disable Fujinet first, then this way boots quickly to Basic, and I'm going to go back to the preferences, emulator, and I have use bundled Fastbasic, it's already here, and then you have show Fastbasic build panel. As soon as you do this, you see here that this bar shows Fastbasic compiler, a drop down, a browse button, run, and show output. The idea is that you can use any editor you have. So even in terms of Mac, you have the text edit, which is its version of Notepad. Let's change to plain text, and I'm going to save something in the desktop. I'll create a folder here, basic, and here I'm gonna create test.bas. Okay, and here let's create a very simple Fastbasic program. Fastbasic doesn't use line numbers like the built-in Atari Basic. This is a Fastbasic program. Print what is your name, input $, print hello. And I will put another input here just so the program stops before closing. Then I save. As soon as this is saved, you can come here, click Browse, point to the same folder you create the basic programs, and the drop-down will load all the ones you have in this folder. In this case, because I have just test.bas, I only have this one. So this is what you have to do. To deploy the program to the emulator, you just click Run, and then you have the program loading. And then that last input B dollar sign, and then close, and then boots because there is nothing else. And then you can iterate like very quickly with the program. Oh, let's say I wanted to add a different line here, and I want to create some, I don't know, just putting some equal signs below it, and I want to test again, just run. And then you have the change happening to you. This way, you can go back and forth changing your code and testing it immediately. Keep in mind that this simple way to use Fastbasic programs doesn't allow you to debug the program. Let's say going line by line, looking at variable names and things like that. You have to rely on adding debug statements in your code and debug here. So it's a very simple way to do it. Another thing that you have, of course, is let's say you make a mistake and you click Run, compilation fail, use show output for details. So if you go here, you can see what's the output that comes out of the Fastbasic compiler saying doesn't know what is this, right? So we can see that print is missing an I, then I fix it, close, and then run again. And then I have my program working. But if you really need more power to develop your Fastbasic program, you can rely on Eric Carr Fastbasic Debugger for Visual Studio. So let's go step by step how to use it. If you are not aware, Eric Carr developed this Fastbasic Debugger for it's a plugin or extension that you install on Visual Studio Code and allows you to use Altera or Atari 800 Mac X, but now also in this last version you can also use Fujisan to be your emulator for software development. So let's see how this works. First of all, let me call Visual Studio Code here. I have a folder with some programs already here, but I'm gonna try to make so that it's easy for everybody to understand how to install the extension and use with Fujisan. What you do in Visual Studio Code is, first of all, you go to the extensions icon here. Here it shows the installed and a lot of different information, but simply let's search for Fastbasic Debugger. It's all right here. It loads here. This information is pretty much the same information you have on that page I just showed you. And to install the extension, you simply go here and click Install. It's already installed. You can go back to the Explorer icon where it shows the folder you are. In this case, I am already in a folder. You have very detailed instructions how to set up your folder properly. But basically what you have to do is put your BAS files in a folder and have a subfolder called bin, where the Fastbasic Debugger will create the debugger binary for your application to run. Okay, so here in the Visual Studio Code, you have the Fastbasic debugger loaded. The next step is to create a configuration. Usually what I do is go here in the run and debug option, or you have here, you can do an add configuration here as well. But if you come here and there is no previous configuration, it says, oh, open a file, can be debugger run, customize run and debug, create a launch.json file. So that's what we need to do. So I'm going to click here. It opens this menu and you look for Fastbasic debugger. So you create this, it loads already some configuration here. But what we're gonna do is customize this a little bit. Well, you have two options, the ones that uses Altira and one for the Fujisan. So let's delete this first one. So you remove this. So what you have, this is the bracket, and then immediately after the curly bracket, and it closes here. And you have these options. You can keep pretty much all of them by default. The only difference here is the path where you have Fastbasic compiler installed. If you are on Windows, that's probably the most tricky one, because if you are on Linux or Mac OS, you know that you just put, let's say, user, and I don't know, Fastbasic compiler, something like this, right? In Windows, you have, normally it's this, right? C and the backslash. But because this is a JSON file, you have to use double slashes like this, or you have to use the forward slash like this, just one, using the normal Windows path names. Like this doesn't change. Whatever it is, whatever is, let's say it's in Fastbasic like this, it's actually this in bin folder. So that's what you do, or you have to use double slashes like this. For Linux and Mac, it's just the forward slash as usual. And I had already in my clipboard, so I can just like copy and paste. This is Fastbasic build. I download from the source. That's why I have this folder structure. Every OS has a different folder structure, but I believe everything is usually in Fastbasic build, and you have all the compilers there. So as soon as you have this, you click save or save this file, and now you have the launch.json file in the same folder as your programs, and then you can start developing your Fastbasic programs. I'm gonna create a new file called Fastbas, and I'm gonna save it. Oh, it's not this one. I'm gonna save it here, where is all the other ones are. So create file. So now I have the fast.bas file here. And then same thing, I'm gonna create a little program. This is fast. Actually, let's save some time. I'm gonna copy this one and use here as well. Okay, so now that you have this program, one difference between Fujisan and the other emulators is that usually for Altira and Atari 800 Mac X, the debugger will launch the emulator passing as parameter the executable for your application. And every time you finish debugging, you've closed the emulator and it will call again. For Fujisan, it's different. You keep it open all the time because Fujisan has an internal TCP server that can receive commands via local network. And that's what this extension does here. So in this case, Fujisan is open, and for your reference, this is what I'm talking about. Enable TCP server, and port is 6502. And that's already the default setting on the extension here. So I have this, and then to run, I like to go here, click the run and debug. Now you have, because you created the JSON file, you have this option here. It's usually the one that it's already selected. And I simply press the start debugging here. As soon as I do this, it will compile and will launch my application in Fujisan on this side. So I can do here and everything is the same. Okay, so the part that with this Fastbasic debugger that it's more interesting is the ability to put breakpoints in your application. Let's say you have a bug here, you want to understand how this works, and if you put a breakpoint, clicking on like just on the left side of the numbering here, and you run again, Fujisan will launch the application. You see that it printed, this is a fast-paced program, the bunch of equal signs, and stopped here, right? And you see that it stopped just before executing the next line. And here you can simply use the, for example, step over will execute this line. Let's say I do step over, so it shows the next line, and then I do a step over again, so it's stopped in the input. There is nothing here because the control is actually here, right? Like the input is waiting for me to put any name. Let's say I'm gonna put Fujisan. Press enter, and then it goes to the next line. So now you see that it says it's in the line before printing hello, the name, and now it shows the variable here with the name that I typed in the program, right? One thing that it's nice to, so you can see what the variable name, but you can also change this to Paulo. Let's, and if I go and do this, it actually prints the name that I press here. So you see that it's a live communication between Visual Studio Code and my application. So let's say you are debugging, you've been debugging for many minutes, and you reach to a point where you see the variable name is not what you want, but you want to keep going. You can just come here, set the proper value, and keep going with your debug. And then if you're, let's say there are more lines here to run, you could just do a resume or continue in this case, and the program will go to the end here. Okay, so that's pretty much it. One thing that I forgot to mention is that for this to work, and Fujisan is already set up to do this, you have to have a H drive pointing to a folder in your machine. So if you come here in the media configuration, you see that I have the H4 drive pointing to this folder here, which is the same folder I open my application, my programs here. So this folder is this folder here, and that's mandatory. You have to come here first, select the H4, point to a folder in your machine, and work from that folder. And you see that you need to have that bin folder here. It's where the Fastbasic debugger extension puts the executable, so it can create or control the debugger like this. Okay, so let's take a look at the Fastbasic debugger with Fujinet. So here I'm gonna re-enable Fujinet. We have an option to not load the config. You can disable that, but I'm gonna leave this for now. And now that you have Fujinet enabled, you can, let's say, debug a program. This is a, a basic program that comes with the extension. So if you look at the extension folder, there are some basic programs there, and this is like a game that Eric created and uses Fujinet. Okay, so it's pretty much the same thing. Like this, I can see it's a very complex, fast-based program. And if you want to debug it, you can simply come here, let's say, put a breakpoint, come here, run. One detail, the run will always affect whatever tab is active. So in this case, just for the fact that I opened the 5 cards application, the debug will run this guy here. So if I click run, it will compile, will call. So now I'm stopped here. That's why it stopped there. And then I can go one line by line. You can see it comes and they continue and that start the game. And this is a Fujinet enabled game, so it's talking to the network. That's pretty much it. You can develop games for Fastbasic using Fujisan and the Visual Studio Fastbasic Debugger. One thing that I didn't mention before is that for this here to work, you cannot use that bundled fast-based compiler that it's in Fujisan. You have to download your own, put it on the folder, and remember that we, in the launch JSON file, we point to where it is. So this is something you have to manually do it. Okay, I hope that helps. If you have any questions, please leave a comment, or if you find anything wrong with Fujisan, which is possible because it's in active development, been trying to fix the bugs as they are reported, but it's really hard to test everything. So expect to have little bugs here and there, but the application is pretty much usable. And also, if you prefer or if you have a bug in Fujisan and you want to report, you can always use the GitHub issues option here and report your bug. Just make sure you are very clear, like what OS you are using, how you got that problem to happen, the steps, and so on, to make easier for me to try to reproduce and fix it. Okay, I hope that helps, and let me know if you need anything. And if you create a nice game or application, use Fujisan with Fastbasic Debugger. I would love to know about it.